We know that the year promises to be very busy with political activities as the parties intensify their campaign ahead of the December 7 presidential and parliamentary primaries. Most of the parties spent last year reorganizing their structures. The governing New Patriotic Party will continue that this year. So how did that exercise reorganization go, and how will that impact, political campaigns ahead of the general elections this year? And that's why we're putting together this discussion for you here on The Pulse. Joining me now is Dr. Azar Asante, political scientist, University of Ghana. We also have Mustafa Gbande, Deputy General Secretary of the Opposition National Democratic Congress. Mohammed Haruna is the Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, and Musa Dankwa is the Executive Director for Global Info Analytics, all joining the conversation. Mr. Kofi Ekpalu is also founder and leader of the LPG. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending some time with us. Already, we're getting to see what some Ghanaians on social media think about the elections coming up. But let me just first of all find out from you, Haruna Mohammed, since you are with the governing New Patriotic Party, you're not done yet in terms of your reorganization process. The process is, in fact, at a very crucial stage where you will now be electing your parliamentary candidates by end of this month. So let's start off from where the NPP is in terms of reorganization, and what would you say is your status going into the next elections? And kindly unmute for us so we can hear the point you're making, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I take the time to wish your station and your other sister station, all media houses in Ghana, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We in the MPP have taken the roadmap to make sure that we get the right candidates to represent us in the 2024 general elections in terms of parliamentary representation. We are done with presidential primaries. We have our flag bearer in the person of the most respected, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. And we have done with the orphan constituencies, and we are going to go all out from tomorrow. That is from tomorrow. Vetting committee should be going vetting for the vetting to be conducted for the sitting members of parliament. We'll be doing the elections on 27, and therein we'll have all our representation in terms of parliamentary representation set for the 2024 general elections. Moving forward into the 2024 elections, we are very clear and resolute in our mind that we are battle ready and we are sure of victory when it comes to 2024 general elections. We are not interested to have a single life to be shared for His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to become president of Ghana. We are not going to go to the polling stations with cutlasses or any weapons that would have to go there. However, if anybody decides to go there with any cutlass, we may see them as just sticks. And I think that we'll be able to conquer and make sure we defend the Constitution and the sanctity of our democracy in Ghana. We have not been trained to be violent. We have not been trained to attack. We have not been trained to vilify people. We have always remained a great conservative party, a liberal democrat party. We believe in rule of law, we believe in selection, and we believe in election. And I think that this going forward, the MPP will still maintain the course of which.
In fact, these sentiments have been, and these sentiments have been echoed by the president himself and the vice president, all who've delivered their messages. And talk about the vice president, though, who's now the leader of your party, leading into the next elections. He's speaking about what might happen this year. Very confident of the economy bouncing back. How many times would the vice president keep promising, the revival of the Ghanaian economy, which many say is collapsing, if not collapsed?
I don't know what you are looking at. Since ever he says that he's promising the economy will bounce back. You have seen that there has been several strikes and positive results that has come out from that. You see the rundown of inflation. You also see reportage from other international bodies with regards to the turnaround of the Ghanaian economy. The vice president don't just speak. He speaks to data, and this is verifiable that media houses can't look at it. We are going forward to 2024 general elections, and we know 2024 alone also holds its own dynamics. But we have presented a budget to the people of Ghana, and the parliament has so approved that particular budget. So many economic policies have been put in there. Other indicators have been measured and projected towards 2024. And we are very confident that the road that we are traveling on with regards to the management of the economy will bounce back, and Ghanaians will feel very comfortable to make sure that the MPP is the only alternative that is supposed to hold this country and make sure that everything is well for us, because we have done it before, moving Ghana from EPIC and then making sure that we have been able to provide enough job opportunities, even though we have not been able to get everybody on board. We have made sure that security situations are set. We have made sure that in terms of health devastating nature, in terms of COVID, we have been able to withstand and be able to protect the lives of the citizens of Ghana. And these are the key marks that we are all looking at.
And yet in all of this, it appears that the sentiments on social media, it might not be scientific in terms of what's the actual reflection on the ground. Ghanaians there feel that John Mahama is more likely to, capture their hearts, if I should put it that way, going into the next elections. I'll give you the opportunity to, react to that latest that we're learning of. But it's a good time to hear from Musa Dankwa, who's also joining us because he's with Global Info Analytics. They have done some work, of course, starting off with the inner city and zonal communities. Now we're hearing about social media. Musa Dankwa, what do you have to say about this latest findings? Social media, is it reality, by the way? And I'm not hearing you, so if you could just, hit that button for me so I can.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Loud and clear. I can, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We've just finished a poll, and in the poll, about 78% of Ghanaian voters are on social media. So you cannot completely ignore the views of voters on social media. Only 22% said they have no social media presence. So social media is quite a formidable tool. And also we've seen a gradual increase in the number of voters who really make themselves or avail themselves in the political campaign on social media, mostly on Facebook and TikTok. And TikTok is a rising kind of platform where people are able to engage their political leaders directly. Regardless of whether you have a degree or you haven't been to school, people feel free and are able to communicate freely on TikTok. So it's going to be a very big tool people should not ignore. The sentiments, I would say, is being reflected in what we have seen in the polls, as far as we have seen the numbers. We cannot brush it aside. There's a correlation between what is happening on social media and what's happening on the ground.
And speaking of that, though, social media and its influence on what's likely to happen this year, what do you predict might be the case? Because we've seen some of the works already out there appearing to suggest that a certain candidate is much more, favored in terms of the opinion polls on social media. Is that something the political party should be worried about?
No, I think they should be worried about because if you look at people who are on social media, mostly they are influencers. They tend to influence people within their environments. And if their sentiment is not very good, that should be something that the ruling party must seek to address. If you look at the recent sentiment analysis done by Imani Ghana, it showed that about 20% of the sentiments expressed on NDC was positive, whereas was only 10% for MPP. So that's a huge gap.
I see. Mathematically speaking, it's indeed a very wide gap, but many are asking if that has the potential to translate to what might happen on the ground, because yes, you have quite a significant population, as you're saying, 20% plus, who are not online. They've not expressed their views as well.
Yes. If you look at the last poll that we published, October poll, in that poll, weighted, John Mahama was on 48% out of about 5,800 samples we interviewed across the country. And Dr. Bamia was around 28%. So the gap is almost like a double gap. So we are seeing the gap on social media and the gap in the field to be very much the same.
I see. I'll come back to you on what probably might change, because this is politics. 9-10 months before the elections is quite a significant period. What needs to change? What factors might influence the turnout and also the electoral result going into the elections, and what you've been finding out in your latest survey? But let's hear from the other actors. Mustafa Gbande is also joining us. Is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Quite a favorable results for you, looking at what Imani is saying and what the last polls from the Global Info Analytics has been trying to point out. But some say that you still have got much more work to do, particularly when you're dealing with a governing party that says they will break the 8-year political cycle.
Okay, so good afternoon to my colleagues, and then good afternoon to our cherished listeners. Happy New Year to all of them. The NDC in the last year have been able to organize itself as a solid political party with credibility. We have been able to hold forth a united party that is ready to take over power. We have our flag bearer in place, who is a man of credibility. He's done it before. He has a track record that Ghanaians trust. This year, we'll reflect about the challenges that this government have posed to Ghanaians. If you look at the fact that this government has become, scandals have become habitual to them. Every day, we have scandals upon scandals upon scandals. And they continue to, out of impunity, want to blame external shocks such as COVID for the cause of their broadly corruptions, their inefficiencies, and deliberate promises that they gave to Ghanaians, which ended up to be fraud. Now, merging that with the outcome of Imani Ghana's research, you recall that the MPP government led by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo is the only government in the history of our country that youth of this country will have to demonstrate against on social media. That is a level at which human rights have been trampled upon. The rule of law has been thrown to the dogs. And so youth have not gotten opportunity to even demonstrate physically out of the difficulties that this government have made them to face. So social media was the place. Now, if you look at the Christmas package they gave us, the SML expose that Manasseh Azuri investigated, which they are trying to cover up, but we will discuss it full scale and will expose government further, that became a concern to a lot of Ghanaians. They will discuss that on social media. In the MPP headquarters, Ghanaians are trying to find out that is it true that John Boadu and the General Secretary are at war. It's a concern that a political party in government, apart from one breakaway, the General Secretary is being fought at. People will want to know. So that is a discussion on social media. It obviously concludes that the popularity of the MPP out of the social media pools reflect negativity, corruption, and the level at which young people of this country demonstrate their concerns against the government on social media.
All of these sentiments are being, brought to bear simply because of the major factor you're talking about, the economy. The Vice President has spoken in his New Year message, delivering that address and pointing out to Ghanaians that things will indeed turn around this year. That indeed, if it's true and if it works out, of course, might change all of these sentiments that people have about the Vice President.
There are no sentiments to change about the Vice President. He's a man who doesn't have integrity because he hasn't kept his word. This is a Vice President who led a campaign of one village, one dam, took money from World Bank. Let him account to the people of this country what happened to those dams. This is a man who led one district, $1 million, one village, one district, one factory. What became of these policies that he promised Ghanaians? Now, the widespread of corruption that every Ghanaian can feel is not resided in pools. It is resided in the pocket economy of Ghanaians. People went to Christmas without having to be able to celebrate. If you go to the hospital and your mother is dying because health insurance is not working, it's a major concern. People who cannot longer afford to pay their bills. Let me remind the MPP that over 30% of salaried workers go back to government as tax, and they have misused same in the last 6 years.
Okay.
1 year for you to exit government, you are promising a rebound of the economy. To do what?
Well, at least that's the promise. We don't know if that will be fruitful this year.
We should stop entertaining promises from people who do not have the credibility to carry out same.
Okay.
The MPP, Nana Akufo-Addo, and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, my senior brother, does not have what it takes to carry out their own promises, and Ghanaians will not take them serious.
Oh, okay, but then what's likely to also change about the dynamics of the elections? We're not focusing as much on the emerging political parties. Let's bring in first of all Kofi Akpaloo, who's with the Liberal Party of Ghana. He'll be joining us shortly. But Dr. Asante is also with us, and Doc, you've listened to all of these parties involved. The NDC has spoken, the NPP has spoken, the Vice President himself, who's now leading the party into the next election, is giving the assurances that things indeed will change. But when you look at the polls as well, then Imani comes through to say the sentiments are against you. How do you see, that they are looking like for all of the major political parties going into this year's election?
Blessed, good afternoon. I think I missed the tail end of your question. If you can,
I'm just asking about your asking about your forecast. If you can hear me, I'm just asking about what you see happening this year. Looking at all of the sentiments being raised with the latest findings coming through from Imani. Dr. Santi, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about
thank you for the opportunity. I think this year is going to be hello. I think
yes, go ahead, sir.
Hello, Blessed. Can you hear me too? Can you hear me, Blessed?
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
Yes, what I'm saying that this year election is going to be an interesting one. Interesting in the sense that right from now, we are going to see a lot of activities. MPP is going to the poll to elect the members of parliament, and then the other parties would also follow suit. You are also going to get running mates from the two giant political parties and the other minor parties as well. So there's going to be a lot of activities. But we must bear in mind that there are things we must consider and consider them well. One, what will be the role of the individual in all these? We the people, because democracy revolves around the people. What will the people do? So we are going to see people being educated about their voter issues. We are going to have people express their concerns and all that. And we expect that people will also be vigilant in the whole electoral process. Because after all, according to Price, vigilance is the price of liberty. If we really want this democracy to continue to be strong, then the people must play their role according to the rules of the game, and then be vigilant. And that is one thing. Another thing that we are going to see is the activities of the political parties, which I've already recapped. But we want to see the political parties, engage in campaign of issues, where issues that concern Ghanaians are brought to the fore, where promises that are made, government is made accountable to explain them. as to whether they've been able to deliver them or not, and whatever reason that they have for delivering or not being able to do so, they will explain. Of course, we want to also see opposition party and the other parties also coming out with fantastic ideas that resonate with people, ideas that deal with our problems. We want to see, if you like, a clean campaign devoid of rancor, void of bickering, attacks, hooliganism, vandalism, and the rest of them would not be part of this campaign. That means that we want to make sure that we have security right on top to deliver this. We will not accept that situation where people are gunned down during election and the rest of them. That incident will not be repeated this year.
And since you're bringing this Doc, since you're bringing this issue up, the question, of course, needs to be there. What do you sense in terms of the political atmosphere of the country? Religious leaders, we've heard even the vice president raise that concern that this year's election ought to be peaceful. Is it the case that all of these actors sense some sort of tension, or the fact that the stakes are simply high going into the election?
Election is characterized by a certain level of tension one way or the other, that we know. But it is always in our interest to bring that tension down and make sure that play by the rules of the game. If it is where we want to go overboard, cross the lines, that you really see election degenerating into violence and the rest of them. Ghanaians will far. So we will not countenance any election that is violent. We will not countenance.
It appears we're having some challenge there with Dr. Asante. We'll definitely reconnect with him later on. But I also want to, just one more time, before I bring you in, Haruna, let's hear from Musa Dankwa, because there's a critical point to establish here, that the issue about, the factors that might play in your favor just to turn, the ratings around. Musa Dankwa, what do you think about, this polling that has come out from Imani? What's, the major factor that could overturn all of these sentiments on social media?
There are 4 key issues as far as the polling numbers have shown for the past 2 years, and those haven't changed. Number 1, on the minds of people is the economy. Overwhelmingly, people said economy is the issue. Number 2 is job situation. The job is also another key issue that the government must really work on if they are to turn around their fortunes in the poll. 3 has been education. I mean, you would have thought that maybe with free education will not be an issue any longer. But anytime there is a school opening and there is chaos, it becomes an issue to be concerned with. And I think the 4th has been corruption in the last October poll. But I think there has been a slight change between October and December in terms of the 4 items that are crucial for voters. I think what we are seeing in the current poll is that corruption has been replaced by roads, which is a lot of money that the government needs to fix those roads. So, yes, the things that people are concerned about are changing, the dynamic, but the top 2 or top 3 remains the same.
I see. Jobs,
economy, education.
Very major factors indeed. Musa Dankwa, thank you for spending some time with us. Haruna Mohammed, as we wrap up on the conversation, you want to react to these 3 or 4 major factors. How do you intend to change, or turn the corner, as the president will use that term?
Bless. Thank you very much. Before then, I've heard about inputs on social media reportage that has been tabled before the discussion. If you look at the research findings, you will see that the negative reportage you're talking about, remember that the MPP is in government, the NDC is in opposition. There is that need that Ghanaians will be talking more about the government because they believe it is the government's responsibility to respond to the need of the people of Ghana. So whatever that goes wrong is going to be discussed, and this is going to be measured as they say that it is a negative reportage. Remember, misinformation has played a very key role in 2023, where it turns out that it is absolutely not true. All corruption cases that have been mentioned are perception of corruption, but not evidence of corruption. So these are matters that we all look at. My colleague is talking about credibility. There is one person that has lost his credibility in this country, and that is the person of John Dramani Mahama, who has the albatross of the fourth expedition, the Amajaro contract, government official one, and all that is put on him. He's talking about the 1 million per constituency. He doesn't know that the ambulances that he enjoy and the good citizens of this country enjoy, the ambulances that John Mahama, when he has accident and he had to call, is coming from the $1 million project that His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia supervised. For us, if you forget about the data, we will have the opportunity to remind you that that report that has changed out in terms of the Imani Ghana, you see that 14 million, the MPP, vis-a-vis 3 million just for the NDC. This is a very huge milestone that we have chopped. But we are not going to jubilate over such findings. We only improve on what the findings say. Yes, I take cognizance of the job situation that has been mentioned. If you look at the trajectory, you see that the MPP has provided more job opportunities for the teeming youth of this country. Remember, in 2016, we came through with our manifesto called the Agenda for Jobs. We have done so well in terms of job provision in all the sectors, and will continue to do so in 2024. We will stand as the only alternative that will be able to solve most of the, or the majority of the unemployment situation in this country. When it comes to economy, we are uncontestable in terms of performance, in terms of upgrade, in terms of solutions. We continue to do that. I will always restrain myself when it comes to speaking to data. I understand the taxation level of this country. I have done taxation and understand the tax table. It is absolutely falsehood that you say 30% of Ghanaian people who earn salary goes back into pay as you go. The table for taxation has its own symptoms. And I stand to tell my colleague that when you are desperate for political power, you must be very careful of the information you put out, because one day you would leave politics or you stay in politics, but you would champion a career that is going to speak about you. So when we talk about education, the MPP has made several strides when it comes to the primary level, where we implemented the FQ program. When it comes to the senior, the second cycle, where we implemented the pre-senior high school policy. Assuming there was no such policy, then the problem in education would have been very high. I have always said that people will appreciate pre-senior high school in 10, 20 years to come, because to measure impact, it is very great because it takes a longer period of time. And that is why you have seen most of the graduates in the senior high school policy today scoring highest in 73% in terms of a pass rate for our students. Remember, it is in West Africa, not just in Ghana. And we are touted as the people that have been able to perform very well. Right. In terms of corruption, all of us wants to fight corruption, but we must also be very mindful of the fact that corruption cases that are reported now are perception. And we think that all of us has to join hands to fight this. Okay. And I think that we in the MPP will continue to be a listening government and a party that will make sure that 2024 is going to be very peaceful. All right. I'll call on my brother to make sure that when he's speaking, talking, he should not be moved by the mic or the crowd or whatever to talk about violence and whatever things that he has to do. Okay. I heard his talk, and it is very, very disheartening for him to have said what he said. And I think that the public require an apology from him. But if he still wants to go that trajectory, to go to the polling station with cutlasses, I assure him that young boys will collect the cutlass from him just as they collect sticks from mad people.
Haruna Mohammed is the Deputy General Secretary of the governing New Patriotic Party. Mustafa Gbande, your final words on this?
Much. I think that basically what is more important is that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama obviously have been doing some consultations as far as his next regime policy framework is concerned. He has been consulting with chiefs, artisans, various people who are affected by the economy to see their contribution towards what we call the People's Manifesto into building the Ghana that we want. For us, in that tour, in that conversation, our campaign of issues, we will thoroughly dissect issues of corruption. We will thoroughly dissect issues of non-performance. We will deal with issues of promise and fail. Aruna talks about who should help government fight corruption. When the corruption is so centralized to the top, up to where the president is seated, who is going to fight that corruption? The president is corrupt. His appointees are corrupt. Haruna is saying that it is perceptional when they say that government officials are involved in illegal mining and depletion of forest resources, but yet we have not been able to arrest all these people. Job creation, even NAPCO, that the MPP created, NAPCO, it has collapsed. The young people who have sacrificed, thinking they were going to get hope of jobs, they have lost those opportunities. They have even not been paid about 3 months to 6 months. Haruna talks about job, but the promise of job, I believe, is contained in the 24-hour economy policy of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The promise of the economy, the rebuild of the economy, is contained in the 24-hour economy policy. And we've been explaining what is meant by the 24 economy hour, which today we will not explain. But going forward, the NDC is going to intellectually tackle 2024 general election, devoid of rancor, devoid of violence. We want to uphold the rule of law towards institutions doing what they are supposed to do. Right. The sitting president is a beneficiary of electoral violence, where Ghanaians were killed for him to become a president. Those people have not been compensated. Their families have lost breadwinners. The NDC is not a violent political party and will not engender a violent conversation any day.
I see.
Wherever they think there was an issue of violence from is regrettable. But I want to tell Mohammed that he is talking about being popular on social media when they have lost miserably in the recent assembly election that was conducted. In fact, the chairman of the Council of State, Dr. Nana Srebua, his own electoral area, the MPP have lost.
Okay.
And the person who was contesting there is a presiding member.
I see.
As we speak, in the constituency of the local government minister, he has lost miserably to the extent that he's not even going back to parliament.
All right, and I'm great.
The people have rejected the MPP.
And I'm grateful, gentlemen. If I give you the opportunity, you'd both be at each other on this matter. Mustafa Gbande is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. I need to put on record that the local level elections does not have the political party sponsoring. I mean, you can do your own analysis, but officially speaking, the political parties do not have a stake as of now by law in the local level elections. Haruna, I know you have some few words, but I won't give you the opportunity because you'd go on and on and on at each other. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for spending some time with us here on The Pulse.